Oh, beautiful gold rush with your sparkling top prize, you surely are a sight for sore eyes. And jackpot slots with your chance of $75,000 winners. Oh, how I'd take you for a candlelight dinner.
Sounds like people are really loving the new February instant games from the Tennessee Lottery. Play today for your chance to win up to $5 million, only from the Tennessee Lottery. Game-changing fun. Please play responsibly.
We have a lot going for us in Fall River, Massachusetts. Historic charm, great bird watching, and an Amazon warehouse. MJ works there. She got healthcare on her first day.
For me and my kids.
They're a big birding family. Jose is doing a free tech program. His career is about to take off in
software development.
Full and part-time employees are spotting opportunities like these all across the country. Good for employees, good for Fall River. Amazon, every day better.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. This is iCompete, Building Your Empire with John Hewitt, live from the castle. Hi, I'm Roberta Barrett. I'm John Hewitt's producer. You might be asking, who is John Hewitt? Well, he is the Hewitt in Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you want to find out more about John Hewitt and what he's currently doing, go to loyaltybrands.com. That's loyaltybrands.com, or find John T. Hewitt on LinkedIn or Facebook. John Hewitt's made over 1,000 millionaires, and you could be the next one. Here is your host, John Hewitt.
Thank you, Roberta. Welcome, Bob Gappa. And Bob, would you tell us a little bit about your experience before we start?
Sure, thank you. I've been really, maybe blessed is not the right word, but I'll use it with having the opportunity to work with now over 1,650 brands and leaders and CEOs of those brands that use franchising as their primary growth strategy, and that pretty much sums it up. Company's in its 41st year. I've worked with you at 2 of your companies and now at a 3rd, and so I consider all that a privilege.
Incredible. And how many years of experience was that again?
Well, Management 2000 is in its 41st year, and before that I worked for 7 years with a boutique consulting company that focused on really the top 1,000 brands. And before that, I was the first lay consultant, that is not ordained, consultant to the U.S. Congress of Catholic Bishops. And that was interesting as CEOs of their dioceses.
That's awesome. And welcome to the show. And today we're going to talk about employees that act like owners. And Bob, what percentage, in your opinion, of employees act like owners?
John, I'd say just generally in the public out there, 5%, maybe 10 if we push it in a well-managed and led company, but generally about 5% or less, maybe.
And so then it would be like if we were searching for an employee that acted like an owner, it's like needle in a haystack.
It would.
So,
it would, but I think you can find those needles.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to talk about today is, first of all, let's describe what a employee that acts like an owner. What does that mean? What does act like an owner mean?
To me, the first thing and the most important criteria is a person who has an unwavering commitment to results, and they're firm on achieving that vision or those results, but they're flexible on how to get there. So I'd say firm on vision, flexible on strategy and tactic. And if I'm not the CEO, it doesn't matter if I'm a delivery driver for FedEx, I have to have an unwavering commitment to get those packages delivered, and I'm going to be flexible on how it's done, but it's going to be done in any case. To me, that's the most important criteria.
We are exactly opposite in some ways, I think, Bob, and that's one is if you can describe something in 20 words, you say it in 100, and I say it in 3. So
well, let me hear your 3.
Well, I'm not sure I could do this one in 3, but certainly I would say it's something like when they're in the shower, what are they thinking about? Are they thinking about personal stuff, or are they thinking about the business? And I think on the way to work, on Monday morning is most people say, thank God it's Friday. I almost invented this, and it seems so simple. Thank God it's Monday. If you're not looking forward to where you're going on Monday morning, then you're going to the wrong place. So I think it's a love and a commitment, mental commitment, all in kind of. I guess if I had to say it in 2 words, it's all in.
Yeah.
Now, is all in. Speaking of that, when did they then all in? Was it just 10 or 15 years ago when poker became a televised sport? How long have people been saying all in?
I really don't know the answer to that, but I think the concept of all in has been around with people who have an owner mentality from the beginning of time. Because unless you have an unwavering commitment to results, things and people are going to get in your way. And, people run into a tree that's across the road and they just stop. And they say, well, that's that. Guess I can't get that done. People seem to me to often say to themselves, I have an unwavering commitment to results, but that's if everything happens the way I think it's going to happen. And that's where flexibility on strategy and tactic come in. If you're driving across country and you say, I'm going to leave on Sunday and I want to be there by Wednesday at 7 p.m. in California as I drive from New York, and no matter what happens, if my car breaks down, if the plane is delayed, no matter what, I'm going to be there. To me, that's an owner mentality. When you absolutely own the result and you take care of it and you nurture it and you achieve it. Again, 20 words.
Awesome. Let's talk about how I came to this thought process and into what we want to discuss and what we want to give a cure for and a solution for executives and managers to look for this person. But it was regarding conversations that you and I had, Bob. And first, let me go back and talk about that there's a book called The Purple Cow by Stan Phelps. And in the book, he says that you never arrive at a meeting or a party or an event exactly on time. If it's supposed to start at 6 p.m., you arrive at before it or after. Almost no one arrives exactly at 6 p.m. And he said, so in the same way, and this was poignant, in the same way that you never exactly meet a customer's expectation. You either exceed their expectations or you fail to meet their expectations. You almost never just exactly meet their expectations. And so that's part of our goal and our emphasis and is important. I mean, it's the most important part of our emphasis to exceed customers' expectations. Well, in conversation with you a few months ago, we were talking about finding employees that act like owners, and it occurred to me in a discussion after that. I was trying to hire someone, and it occurred to me that I had told you that one of the biggest failures of my career is that I couldn't get people to understand they work for results. Everyone, virtually all of them, want to get paid for seniority or experience or intelligence or education. And it's been so difficult to me to convince the vast majority of my staff that what you get paid for is what the results you are to the company. And at the same time, I've said a zillion times that I have never been able to change anyone's attitude. And I've been in business 52 years. I've had thousands and thousands of employees, and I beat my head against the wall hundreds of times trying to get people to change their attitude. And what I've learned is that people start out as pessimistic. They can become optimistic for an hour, a day, a minute, a week, a month, but you can't keep them, you can't get them optimistic forever. And people that are optimistic, they can be pessimistic for an hour or two or a week or a month, but they go back to being optimistic. And I've never had any success in converting them. And then I realized and I hadn't that was a number one thing that I've never done. And then there is something that I've done a little bit, and that I realized that the two were very parallel, that I've almost never, if ever, convinced an employee who acts like an employee to act like an owner. And the way that I came up with that is we're a new startup. I'm in my fourth startup. I built this first tax software for an Apple in 81, and we started Jackson Hewitt in 82. And we started Liberty Tax in 1998. And now we're on our fourth startup with Loyalty Brands. And when you're in a startup, you step back and you have to take a cut in pay, and you have to not have all the trimmings that you have when you're a $500 million public company. And so I was trying to hire someone, and I was saying, well, we need you to, and they had been paid a significant figure. They were multi-millionaires, and they wanted a salary. Let's say the salary was $250,000, and for the being a CEO of one of our subsidiaries. And I said, well, wait a minute, we have no income, we have no employees, we have great ambitions and hopes and dreams, but we have nothing. And so if we meet our goals and pretend our goals were to generate revenue in the first year of $500,000, in the second year of 1.5 million, in the third year of 5 million. If we meet those numbers, then you're going to be worth that, and I'm willing to pay you in stock and or bonuses if you achieve that. But off the first month, we have no income. Why would we pay you $20,000? I can lose $10,000 a month without you. I don't need to pay you $20,000 to lose $10,000 a month. And so I was unable to convince this person that they should work and being part of something that's going to be worth millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions, and they're going to make millions of dollars if they just would start from a smaller base. And again, it wasn't someone that needed the money today, but they felt they were worth $250,000, and they were unwilling to take a considerably lower salary with the opportunity to make far more in advance. That let's pretend that they were going to make $250,000 a year for 4 years, and that's $1 million. Well, what happens if I paid you $100 and then $150 and $200 and then gave you a $2 million bonus in 4 years? That's worth far more, but they weren't willing to commit to getting results, even though they believed they gave lip service to believing in the results. So I realized that person, I think that was a example, and it might not be an ironclad example, but I realized one of the tests of finding out if someone's going to act like an owner is whether they're willing to be paid for results up front. Whether you establish that up front, we're going to pay you less, but give you an opportunity to make more if you exceed your expectations. So does that sound to you like, Bob, a fair test to determine whether someone's going to think and act like an employee?
I think so. And one of the things you're talking about, and see if I'm grasping this, you're talking about a person who wants a salary versus a person who wants to be paid for performance.
Exactly, 100%.
And it seems to me that the more successful people are in their own mind, and the older they get, comfort begins to be a part of your life, and fear of losing what you have becomes a part of your life. And comfort combined with fear are the enemy of risk, or taking a chance, if you will. And sometimes the person you described is the person who is suffering from too much comfort.
I agree. I think that in human nature, and certainly in the United States, if not in the whole world, that people as soon as they reach some level of satisfaction, whether it's the house they own or the car they drive or a boat or the education for their children or whatever the number is, virtually every human being gets complacent. And, I've brought in 5,000 franchisees and they get complacent at different levels. Someone may get complacent making $50,000 a year. Someone may get complacent about making $200,000 a year. Someone may never get complacent, but over 90% of us, I believe, get complacent at a certain point once they've gotten the security that they have. And that person is unlikely to act like an owner from my experience. They're going to act more like an employee because they're not all in. So let's think of some, or Bob, do you have some ideas of questions that we could ask in an interview? Because obviously we can't say in an interview, are you going to act like an owner? And guess what, Bob, people would say?
Yes, of course I will.
Right. Exactly. So how can we, I find that people in interviews are at the best in their life. It's even better than a first date. They're incredible. People are so good at selling themselves. It's not easy to sort through all the BS and get to who we're talking to. So we have to trick them. We can't say, to tell the truth. We have to incite them to tell the truth. We can't just ask a question, are you going to act like an owner? So do you have some suggestions as to clever questions we can ask them to discern whether they're going to act like an owner? And I've already given one. My first one is, are you willing to be paid for results? Are you willing to take less of a salary up front with the possibility of making even extra if you meet your goals? Are you willing to be paid for results? So that's my first one. Do you have other ideas of what to do?
These are great challenges. If we ask somebody to describe a project that would not have been successful if they had not taken ownership of it, do you think that would help us decide that if they had an owner mentality?
I think, the questions about their prior performance and, for example, independence I think you're describing independence on a project is excellent, because if they've been under control, if they've been controlled and they didn't have any say in the budget, for example, or the resources, or asking them, what resources were you given? What instructions were you given? What results did you achieve? And what did you and how did you achieve it? And I think those kind of questions based on their former work occupation is pretty clear. Another one that I like is what's the most hours you worked at in any previous job in 1 week? And then how did that feel? And, well, Bob, what do you think do you think employees are 40-hour people, 40-hour week people?
Yes, and I don't think the amount of time it takes is as important to somebody with an owner mentality as the way their time is used to achieve that result. This may not appear, my comment may not appear to be relevant, but to me it is. And I mentioned this the other day on a call with you and some others. In our society and our organizations, we have to-do lists rather than to-be-done lists. And that, to me, has always been something to focus on. If someone says, what are you going to get done today versus what are you going to do today? And so a question we might ask somebody that would be relevant to 40 hours a week or not with their personal or business life is, what are 3 results in your personal life, short-term and long-term, that you're absolutely committed to achieving regardless of the obstacles that come in your way?
What about business life? Do you have any questions about their business life?
That too. Their business life would be, in your past employments, what was missing that made you want to leave? And if you become part of our team, if I'm interviewing them, if you become part of our team, what could you discover once you joined us that would make you say, I made a mistake, I need to leave this company? That might help us understand if they have an owner mentality or not.
How about the question that who's your best supervisor and why?
That's great.
What can you determine? I mean, think about that answer. It's. I think it would be very illuminating to find out. Obviously, everyone's had a best supervisor and a worst supervisor. Even if they only had one, then they were both worse than best. But if they define what they like about the supervisor, then that may illuminate whether they're going to act like an owner or not. For example, if they say, "Oh, the supervisor let me only work 30 hours a week," and I got away without working 30 hours a week, then that'd be obvious that they were uncommitted. But there should be answers in that identify whether they're going to act like an employee or owner.
One of the questions that I like to ask somebody is, give me an example of a less important task and a task you consider critical in your business or personal life, and how each of them has to have an owner mentality to get the result. You know, I think of small things that serve the principle, when you're aware of it, you own it. And that's a small thing, like, I'll give you an example that might seem comical. We have cats, and if I pass the litter box and see that it needs to be cleaned, and I don't stop to clean it regardless of what else I'm doing, and I pass up doing it, does that mean I don't have an owner mentality? I say yes, because it needs to be done. You saw it, you own it, you do it. And on the other hand, I could be driving down the freeway, and it becomes more critical if I let somebody in or make them sit there in traffic and pretend I don't see them. Or when I get to the office and I know that something has to be dealt with that's not easy to talk to people about. It might be the way they're perceived and the way they treat people. And I let it go, or I talk to them about it. So I think it'd be interesting to ask somebody, what does when you're aware of it, you own it mean to you? That's an interesting question to me. What do you think about that?
I do. I think that's clear, and that's a good differentiator. And I'm going to give you another one. Do you agree that if someone said, "That's not my job," that's an employee?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't even want them around. Do you?
No. And so, again, off the top of your head, and I haven't thought of the answer yet, and let's brainstorm as to how to ask the person if that's the type of person they are, that it's a not my job attitude. Can we think of questions that we could ask them that would establish whether they're going to say that or not, or they're used to saying that or not? I mean, maybe, I guess if we could describe, if we're talking about their former jobs, and we can look for situations, let's say they were a bookkeeper, and they get a call from a customer, and his payroll wasn't done, and it's due on Friday, and he's late, and you need to talk to your supervisor. You could take the information, your supervisor's on another line, and he might miss the deadline. What do you do? And so you can try to put, I think you can try to put examples in front of them based on what they've done in the past, and say, what would you do in this situation? Without, obviously, again, you can never say, would you say that? Would you say it's not my job, or have you ever said that? So you have to kind of trick them again to tell them the truth. And anything come to mind, Bob, about a way to cut through the smoke and mirrors and get to that?
Here's one that comes to my mind, because I think both of us like behavioral questions. So if I was interviewing you and I said, John, give me an example from your work life where you saw something that wasn't being done that absolutely needed to be done, and there was a roadblock, but you weren't accountable for it, you weren't responsible for it, but you knew that if people weren't made aware of it, it would impede the achievement of the company's results and vision. Give me an example when you faced that and what you did, whether you did something about it or not, and why or why not.
I like it, and especially if you can tie it to something. Whenever you ask for an example, I think that really gives you insight into what they're thinking and how they would act. That's critical. Yeah. And we're running down to the end of the segment, Bob, and so I think we've talked about how to hire the right person and find the right person. But what percentage of the time do you think we're going to be right? Remember, you said only 5% of people act like owners, and pretend I'm the guy that hired 100 people and only 5 of them act like owners. If that's true, then I'm going to be wrong 95% of the time, right?
That's a correct conclusion. One of the things that I think we need to talk about in the future at a podcast is how the environment, the company in which people are nurtured and work, impedes them being an owner, even if they are one, in an owner mentality. Sometimes we can kill that like school kills creativity and curiosity. And so that gets to the point of culture, but I think we're not going to be right very often unless we know how to look for the owner mentality. And to me, beliefs that people have, if I ask somebody, what beliefs do you have that made you think you could do that? Or what beliefs do you have that make you think you couldn't do that? And that gets at the heart of what you were talking about in the beginning of this, of attitude. You know, people have a baditude or an attitude. An attitude, let's say, is positive, and a baditude clearly isn't. But those things are formed early in life by the beliefs people are given about issues. And when a belief is applied to an issue, you get an attitude about it. And so what I like to look for in people is what beliefs do they have about the way they approach certain issues. And if I know what you believe and I can be confident you're going to act on those beliefs, I can tell more than not if you have an owner mentality.
Yeah, let me interrupt because we only have about a minute left, Bob, because what you said is extremely, extremely important, and I want to emphasize it in the last minute, and that is that you can kill owner mentality. You have to create a culture that enhances owner mentality. And you know what? If you only have 5% of people that are acting like owners, if your culture wasn't hurting them and appreciating them and creating an environment that they could succeed, then you might have had 15%, but you killed 10% of their spirit. And so first, the key is make sure you have a culture where people can be rewarded and feel good about acting like employees and be great for the company. We got to go, Bob. Any last thoughts? You got 8 seconds.
No, but thank you for inviting me on this. I love it.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about how to build your empire with John Hewitt. Find John on LinkedIn at John T. Hewitt or message John Hewitt on Facebook. This is iCompete, live from the castle, building your empire with John Hewitt. Don't miss new episodes every Monday by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, cpnshows.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, this was iCompete, building your empire with John Hewitt.
Oh, beautiful gold rush with your sparkling top prize, you surely are a sight for sore eyes. And jackpot slots with your chance of $75,000 winners. Oh, how I'd take you for a candlelight dinner.
Sounds like people are really loving the new February instant games from the Tennessee Lottery. Play today for your chance to win up to $5 million, only from the Tennessee Lottery. Game-changing fun. Please play responsibly.
Build a stronger future with Veeam. Protect and restore any workload, anywhere, anytime, instantly. And get comprehensive recovery and tailored solutions that scale with you. Visit VEEAM.com to learn more. Veeam. Radical resilience starts here.